Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CrossWinds Church More Than Sunday podcast. It has been another really long. I think the last podcast I did was with Jody, and we were talking through the beginning of what was going to be our outdoor gatherings of 100 or less. We've been doing those now, and so we're doing these kind of few and far between when we have important stuff to talk about, and it's actually going to be kind of a cool way to communicate at least important things that are going on that, frankly, prior to coronavirus, we didn't get extended time to communicate. And today is one of those, because I am here with Josh Peine, who is our CrossWinds Kids director. And Josh, I'm noticing at the bottom of your picture on my screen, it says Mayor Peine.
Yeah.
And I know you've explained this to me before, but I never remember.
Yeah, it's funny.
Why do our kids and families know you as Mayor Peine?
It's funny. Your daughter and Addie were actually the ones who coined this. And don't worry, Kennedy doesn't remember doing it either, but I promise you it was them. My first Sunday, or it might have even just been like a day that I was here on staff, I walked into the kids' theater and there was, 3 or 4 students just hanging out on the ground talking with each other. And I walked in and kind of said hi and introduced myself, and one of them asked me if I was the new Miss Danielle.
Right.
And I said, yes, but I prefer not to go by the new Miss Danielle. Not anything to say about Danielle. I just thought it might confuse some people if I said, hi, I'm Miss Danielle and or new Miss Danielle. It's just weird. So They were like, well, then what do we call you? I'm like, so then I decided to get, creative and snarky about it. So I'm like, well, you can call me Josh, or you can call me Peine, or you can call me, I say this at camps too, but I say, if you want to get my attention, you can call me, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," to quote one of my favorite movies and poets.
Which, of course, a bunch of kids at a camp have no clue.
Which is great.
But I appreciate it. Because
then it sounds original. So I get originality points, and the parents are like, what? Anyway, and so they heard me say Mr. Josh, and misinterpreted it as Mayor Josh, and they said, why would we call you Mayor Josh? And I was like, that right there, that's perfect, that's what you're calling me. And then it was just kind of a joke, and I've adapted it. I have hats. I literally have hats made that say Mayor Josh. I do. My father-in-law made them for me, but I can't really wear them out in public because people get confused and everybody asks, like, are you running for office? What's happening? No, I work with kids. None of it makes any sense, and I think that's why I like it. So.
There you go. Well, I'm glad to finally get the explanation down. That's good. And I think you have told me that, but I didn't remember. That's the most thorough explanation. I appreciate that. That helps. So many of you who are listening to this will have gotten an email we sent out right before we posted this. And it's an email from Josh and I communicating what could be some difficult news for a lot of you, that Josh, Mayor Peine, is going to be leaving us as our CrossWinds Kids director, and kind of walk through a little bit of that. And we're going to walk through a little bit of that right now in this podcast. But it also walks through a little bit more of what the plan will be in the meantime and after Josh leaves and as we go through coronavirus and all that goes with it. But we know that goes out to those families who are CrossWinds Kids participants. We've got plenty of people who might listen to the podcast that don't have kids in the program, and they may be hearing this for the first time. So just to communicate to all of you, that's something that is happening. Josh is in the process of kind of looking at some other opportunities out there and figuring out what's next for him and what God's got for him. And we thought we'd do something really stupid and record a podcast and talk about that together, because I know we've never done that as a church, and I know that I don't know any churches, frankly, that have sat down and kind of talked through the evolution of a decision for someone to step out of a leadership role on staff, right?
Yeah.
So
I don't know if it sounds stupid. It sounds like fun to me, and it just sounds like, I don't know. It sounds like something you should do. I don't know why people don't do it. I think I agree. Think more people should do it.
I agree. I totally agree. I think this will be fun to see how this goes. So,
Yeah.
so stay tuned on this podcast. We don't know how long this will go.
It could be an absolute train wreck, which really stay tuned. It could just
It really
go
could.
quickly.
So maybe before we jump into some of the why and all that goes into the thought process there, Josh, maybe you can communicate a little bit of what you communicated in the email that we sent out. I mean, just the broad, 20,000 foot explanation. Give
Yeah,
it that.
I'll try to shorten it as much as possible. It was a long email anyway, so um, and I'll add this caveat at the beginning. I'm going to sound excited and optimistic in this podcast, and I am, but it doesn't mean I'm happy or not incredibly saddened to be leaving you and your families in this place. Like there's definitely a heavy dose of that too. So please don't take it as disrespectful if I'm like, yeah, see you later. No, so
Yeah, and the feeling's mutual.
good. I'm glad. The when you approached me about this potential job 3 years ago now, I kind of respectfully laughed at you and said like, thanks, no thanks. I'm I don't do kidsmen. I've never done kidsmen before. Why on earth would I do children's ministry? That makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going home that night, and my wife was really hoping you were going to offer me a job because she thought I was incredibly unhappy at the bank. And so she thought you were going to offer me a job. So she was really excited. So I came home and she's all excited. And she's like, what was it? What was it? And I said, as kids ministry. And she went, oh man, because she knew I wouldn't do it. And so then we went to bed as like well, it's nice that they thought of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up the next day and I rolled over and I looked at Katrina. And I went, oh no, I think I want to do this. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And I will say, aside from marrying her, best decision I ever made. And I mean that. I mean that 100%. I have loved every bit of the chaos and crazy newness that is kids ministry. It was foreign to me. It was a huge learning curve. And I loved it for all of its wildness. And part of the way that I am and the way that I'm wired is when I get into something new, like I try to find out everything I possibly can about it, but I don't like starting at the bottom. I like starting at the top. It's the way it's a sales thing with me. It's the way I connect. And so I don't go out and look for people who are like me that are just starting off in Kidsmen. I go look for the guy that's been doing it his whole life. He's the best of the best. He's writing all of the books, and I wear him down until he'll sit down and have a conversation with me. And that guy was a gentleman by the name of Ryan Frank. He runs Kids Matter magazine. He has been doing children's ministry almost his entire time in ministry for 20 plus years. He's written, gosh, I can't even count, 15 books about it. And he runs a conference in Tennessee every year for exclusively Kidsmen people. So I signed me and my staff up for this thing to go out there and really under the guise of I'm going to go meet him and he's going to teach me everything that he knows. He will be my Yoda, whether he likes it or not. So when I went on this journey, I tried to learn everything I possibly could about it and really tried to implement the best of the best that I could here at CrossWinds. And it worked and everything was working the way we wanted to, but it became, as we got farther into this journey, it became harder and harder to find out where I fit in the grand scheme of children's ministry because I wasn't a kids pastor. I still don't necessarily think that I'm definitely not your typical kids pastor. I don't even know if I am one. I'm just wired a little differently than a lot of church workers really are.
Well, just to interrupt you for a second, but hold that thought because I think it'd be fascinating to continue down a little bit of your path there. But you started coming to CrossWinds. You mentioned you worked at the bank, and what people may not know is that you grew up in Fresno and spent a decent amount of time there in ministry, working in student ministry. And I remember us going to lunch and coffee a lot over the course of you just being a part of CrossWinds and me just wanting to get to know you. But selfishly, dude, it was because very quickly I saw something in you like that guy's supposed to be in ministry. I still feel that way about you. And like that guy's supposed to do amazing things for the kingdom of God. And I thought I just know I'd love to have him on our team at some point someday. And that was the opening we had. And I thought, he just had a baby. Maybe he's about to discover that he loves kids ministry the way that.
Dang it!
What?
You played me.
I didn't play you. No. You've had passion for kids ministry during the season, so we don't mean to make it sound like you're not interested in the job ever or anything like that.
I love it.
Yeah. But it's to say that I just want to affirm you are incredibly gifted and have so much to bring into any ministry. And your experience prior to this was more along the student line. So go on with where you were headed in that.
Yeah. So no, I did about a decade of youth ministry in Fresno, mostly from a high capacity volunteer situation. I was dumb. This church convinced me to run their high school group for 3 years and not take a paycheck for it. And I was like, let's work. I'll work swing shifts at a grocery store. I'll run a franchise of restaurants until 3 a.m. so I can do youth ministry. It'll be great.
Let me say, that's terrible. And we've all done it.
Yeah. The worst part is I don't fault him for it. I was thrilled to do it.
Yeah.
And likewise, I really wanted to be on this team. I mean, CrossWinds, I've been to a lot of churches. I've talked with a lot of churches. I've worked with a lot of churches on projects and side things and all this stuff. CrossWinds really is unique. We like to say that. And I think every church likes to say that they're unique.
Sure.
CrossWinds really is. They actually are different than just about every other church that you'll find out there. And so more so than thinking that I'd be perfect for the role, it was oh man, I could be on this team. Yeah, I'm in. Let's see where this goes. And I think that was kind of the approach we both took. And for a while it worked great. And there was lots of momentum and we were going in the right direction. And then we just kind of hit a spot where we went, okay, we've accomplished the things that we originally set out to accomplish. When you came to me and said this is what we really need you to do. I'm great, I can do those things. And we did those things. And then once we were done with them, it was great, now I can just go and turn this thing into whatever I want it to be. And having no experience in children's ministry, I got to start with a blank slate with no bad habits and free form thinking. And I came up with 1,000 directions and 1,000 different ways to take it. And I think where we finally started to run into each other was there's a way to do children's ministry. There's a reason that a lot of churches do children's ministry a certain way because it works in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And it was hard for me to find my role in that way.
Yeah. Let's talk. So we're going to dive into that a little bit further and kind of walk through some of the grittiness of that, if that's the right phrase. It's probably not the right phrase. I don't know what the phrase is, but
sure, sounded good.
But I think to help people understand that, it might make the most sense to start with the paperclip. As I think about you, I told you I was going to ask you about this. One day at lunch, you explained to me this paperclip exercise that you have done with leaders in ministry and outside of ministry. And I thought it was really good. And in fact, we actually had you come and do it with our students one night before you worked here, and teach one of our Wednesday nights with our students. And you actually led them all through this paperclip exercise, if I recall. Can you share with us what the paperclip exercise is?
Yeah, so it's kind of a litmus test that we've developed, stolen. It was something I read in an article, a psychology article somewhere, and I was like, oh, I'm stealing that and I'm going to use it. Mostly at this leadership camp that we do for students and high school age kids. And it's really like a litmus test for creativity and just a good starting point to get people to think creatively. And so I like to use it when I'm hired or when I'm brought in to work with new teams, because it kind of lets me know what I'm working with before I even get into it. So the whole concept of the test is you sit down, you split people up into groups, and you tell them that you're going to give them an hour or a day or however long to come up with as many uses and as many ways that you can functionally use a paperclip. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all you give them. And you say, you've got some time, get together in groups, write them all down. And the group that comes up with the most uses for a paperclip is going to win a prize, $100 gift card, Chris's car, whatever. And you let them go. And then they come back to you. And I have been hit with many different lists. I've had groups come back with 20 and feel really confident that they're going to win. I've had groups come up with 200 and go, no, we need more time. We need more time.
Right.
But the group that hands down comes up with the most, not just the most different ideas, but the most creative ideas are kids. They're children. In fact, in the study that I stole this from, it is kindergartners through third graders who come up with more uses for a paperclip. Yeah, they come up with something.
I had no idea. I never realized that. That's
that it's kind of irrelevant when you're using it in youth ministries.
Yeah,
they don't really care. But no, really, it's kindergarten to third graders, and it's because they're not trapped by the framework of a standard number 2 for you office supply gurus out there, like a standard number 2 size paperclip. Like they don't think like, well, can we bend the paperclip? Or they're already thinking that way, and so in their mind, the paperclip can be a spaceship because why not? It can be a 300-foot water slide because why not? It can be made out of chocolate and it can be a birthday cake because why not? And like the idea is all I've told you is to come up with a bunch of different uses for a paperclip. I haven't told you that you can't make stuff up or add stuff, or you can't change the size and scope and material of the paperclip. I just gave you a shape essentially and says, what can you do with it?
There half the people listening right now are like, this guy's speaking my language.
And half of them are going, this is stupid.
Chocolate cake? Are you kidding me? You can't eat a paperclip, man.
Sure you can.
They're going, these are the guys that come into my office and consult with us and drive me crazy. Make me wish I could go back to my computer and answer email.
I didn't know people got paid to do that kind of stuff. I'm in the wrong career.
No, so I watched you do this with our students. I loved it. I love the way you think and that you think that way. And I bring it up in the context of this because I think as you have been really spending the last year or so in conversations with Matt. Matt's our executive pastor, everybody who works way more closely with Josh than I get to. I think part of the conversation you guys have been having is, well, what is next in children's ministry? You know, you came in here in a time where there were some very specific things we needed from you in the continued building of children's ministry. And you did those things incredibly well, building your staff team and creating a culture of fun and there's so much creativity and so many good things in all of that. And at some point you go, okay, we've accomplished all those goals. What's next? And I think the paperclip thing comes up because what I feel like I know about you, you go, all right, well now let's reinvent. Like let's strip it bare and start over, or let's figure out what our next steps should be. But maybe they're not next steps that always fall in line with what one would think is a consistent next step for the thing that's already been built. It's often an entirely new thing, right? Am I saying that correct?
No, I think somebody who I follow around a lot and listen to a lot uses this when he talks about thinking outside the box. He says that that's only step 2 of the process. First, you've got to convince yourself to think outside the box, and then you actually have to do it. And then step 3 is once you're outside of the box, you have to turn around and burn the box down.
Yeah.
Because it becomes this frame of reference that it's your safety net. It's what you jump back into if something doesn't work. If you want to actually create something, you have to have a blank slate. You have to have nothing to create from. Yeah. And I think that speaks to me on a very almost, I don't know, carnal level. Like
I'm love it.
Let's burn it down.
I cannot say I've at least heard you say, let's burn it down 5 or 6 times in the last year.
And I'm not a pyro.
No. But I do
go, okay, we've figured out how to do it this way. Let's go figure out another way to do it, because that way might reach a whole different group of people, or that might open up a whole different set of possibilities. But there's also risk and danger in that mindset.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, so here's the part that is a church that has as one of its values, everything is an experiment. I think we've fancied ourselves to be very open-minded and willing to try new things and experiment with new things. We'll sit in a room with you, and I love contrarians. I swear I do. I love people who are like, you guys say it's black, I say it's white. I love it. It's one of the reasons I am drawn to you. We're experimenting. Let's try this. Let's try this. And no joke, we'll sit. I hope it's okay for me to say this because we haven't talked about this part, but you'll go, what if we just burned it all down and started over again with a totally different way of doing it? And And I will sit there in those moments and go, oh my gosh, maybe we should get rid of this value. Everything is an experiment. No, I don't actually think it.
And I can't thank you enough for thinking, let's get rid of the value and not the person.
No, right. No, but I think for kids ministry, and this is where some of the struggle has come, right? For kids ministry as a church, we go, well, I don't know if we can burn that down. And not that you burn kids ministry down, but I don't know that we can say, yeah, let's just stop doing it on Sunday mornings when we're meeting live. It's so crazy because in coronavirus, it feels like it has very much burned everybody down, right?
And I was the idiot when this happened. I was excited about it.
I know.
Yes. Finally, Sundays don't exist anymore. Now they all have to listen to me.
Right. Yeah. But in fact, I remember when it happened, turning to Jody and Matt and being like, this is Josh's moment to shine. He's going to love this. Because it really becomes create whatever you want to create, man. The wide open slate, dude. It's basically everything's on pause. So you gotta figure out what you want to do, and you might as well get creative and build it from scratch. Yeah, I think that as much as we say everything's an experiment, and I think we do believe that. And part of where we mean that is we don't want to be afraid to try new things as a church because they'll fail and everyone will be like, haha, look at you guys, another attempt at something that failed. We want to try new things, let them fail, and then say, wow, that failed. Well, good thing we tried that experiment. Let's try a new one, right? Yeah. But where we don't feel like we maybe always have that luxury is with some of those kind of things we want to have be consistent, like a Sunday morning experience for kids or, whatever.
Right. There's definitely responsibility and that you have, even just as a senior pastor, to everybody who's already comes here and who's a part of CrossWinds, and you have a bunch of other teams. You can't have this person flying off the handle every 5 seconds because you've given him free reign. And so while I hope you never, ever get rid of that value, because I think it will attract some exciting people, and it will give some people who don't think there's a space for them in ministry, an opportunity to go, oh man, maybe I can work in that.
And we discover new things when we do it that stick, because we go, hey, we tried that. That actually worked. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I do think that there is definitely a balance that needs to be kept. And I think that there are things that you have to have that need to be staples and consistent of what a church is and what it looks like to make people feel safe and comfortable enough to come here and be a part of it. Like there is something to be said about consistency and a sense of like, I know when I go there, I'm going to get this, this, and this. And that is something that is valuable and needed for a lot of people. It's just not always the way that I'm wired, and that's okay.
Yeah. One of the things that I've talked about with you, Josh, is that I love that you're not wired that way. That's not a character flaw that you're not wired that way. That's not like we don't want people who are not wired that way around CrossWinds. Jim Collins wrote this book, Good to Great. Josh and I have talked about it. I'm not always a big fan of this book because I've watched churches quote this book and organizations and use it in such a way to really kind of push people out of the organization. And it's a bummer, but it really holds true in many respects in this conversation. In the book, Jim Collins talks about how it is important to get the right people on the bus and then get them in the right seats on the bus. And you, even after this, I think are a wonderful person to have on our bus. I wish you weren't leaving, and I wish you were still going to be on our bus, and I hope that someday you're back on our bus. I told you that earlier. But I think as you describe that, I don't know, as we've talked, that this CrossWinds Kids Director seat is the right seat in this bus. There might be a kids ministry somewhere where it offers an incredible amount of freedom to what's the word we're using again in this? Well, to take a paperclip and turn it into something that's not a paperclip, right? It might be that it's a different zone of ministry, like student ministry or college ministry or something else we're not thinking of. It might be back at CrossWinds in an area totally unrelated to anything we knew existed yet, or that we know is still a few years off. But it's to say it's been wonderful having you on the bus. And a really good part of what you bring is this very thing that one might hear us say, well, we don't want that around here. I love having that around here.
And just for my piece, I've loved every minute on this bus. I love where this bus is going still to this, like, even though I'm coming to my stop, like, I like where this bus is going, and I love the people that are on it, and I've loved my time on it. But the part of that, I don't even know if Jim covers this in the book, is you don't sit in that seat forever. Eventually you get off the bus. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe the right seat on the right bus isn't a forever seat. Okay, besides the paperclip, the other story I've heard you tell a lot is working for a Wendy's when you were like 22, 23.
Yeah.
You tell it. Why am I going to tell it? Go ahead. Share your experience.
So I was young, dumb, and broke, and recently proposed to the woman that would become my wife. 3 days earlier, I had lost my job. It was during the job crash, or you couldn't find a job, and I lost my job, and still proposed, and then had to go and find another job. And I was approached by a franchise in the Fresno area, Central Valley area, and they had about 13 restaurants, and they had a problem. They were either losing their good managers, or the people that they were hiring to be managers were terrible, and they couldn't get them to leave. So they had this problem where they had poor middle management leadership, and it was hurting their restaurants, and they wanted to bring in some people from completely outside of the industry, outside of the market, outside of their pool, to not just do the job better, but also kind of consult and get back to them about what the problems really were. So it's kind of funny. We were hired on kind of as like mid-level or like store management type people. It was me and this other guy, Kit. But really we kind of had a free pass. So like literally within my first month there, my district manager, who was technically my boss, wrote me up. And then for something silly, of course. And then a week later, she tried to write me up again, and she was excited because she got to take it to the next step of getting able to terminate me. And when she opened my file, there's nothing in there because they had shredded the other write-up. So it was then that she realized that something was going on, and her and I are still actually very good friends. So I don't mind telling you that story, but I still have that original write-up kind of framed. I have it in my house. But they kind of hired me for like a 2-year contract, and they're like, hey, come in, do this for 2 years. Let's figure this thing out. And then, if you want to stay, we'll figure it out. If not. And so they're like, best case scenario, you end up taking over like in the upper management of the franchise. So like you become like the executive manager of the franchise, or you move on. So I came in, and I realized really quickly what the problem was. They were, their good managers were stuck right where they were because they had no place to go. And so they would just leave, because if you're a good manager, there's no shortage of jobs out there for you, especially in Central Valley. And then the managers that they were unhappy with, they had promoted from fry cooks. Now, let me say that some of the greatest and best people I ever worked with were at these restaurants. Loved them to death.
Sure.
But they were promoted or hired outside of their skill set, outside of their efficiency level.
Yeah.
And they weren't doing anything wrong. They just didn't have anybody to develop them or teach them. It was just assumed that you work in this restaurant every day, you know everybody here, certainly you can manage them. And so I said, okay, well, here's your problem. You have 2 problems. Number one, you need to hire your managers from outside and bring in people that know how to manage and teach them how to be restaurant employees. You can't take restaurant employees and try to teach them how to be managers. It's too hard.
Yeah.
You have to flip it.
Yeah.
And the other thing you have to do is you have to start giving your employees ownership of the restaurant that they work in. You have to teach them why cost is important. You have to teach them why it's important to have returning customers. You have to teach them all of the things outside of your handbook that makes you successful as a business, not just as a small, not just.
It cracks me up that you're like 22, 23 years old in the middle of figuring all that out and explaining
why I get
people who had to be twice your age, I would think, right?
But it's so hard when you've done something in a certain way for so long to see anything
Yeah,
outside of that. And so
true.
you need fresh eyes on something
Okay,
sometimes
so
to be able
so
to.
yeah, so bring us to the realization you have out of it.
So within about 6 months, I had hired, I had helped them hire and recruit managers at all of their stores, like mid-level managers that would not only be able to run the operations, but could also train the employees to be managers as well. Like that was
Mhm.
one of the pieces that they were missing.
Yeah.
And then I would go to the restaurants and teach all the employees like this is why it's important to put one slice of tomato on the sandwich and not two because it doubles your cost for tomatoes. Like, and I would literally we had these big stainless steel freezers and refrigerators in the restaurants, and I would just write up these huge like Excel spreadsheets with dry erase markers to show them like what their costs were and go like, you want to know why you haven't gotten a raise in 6 months? It's because your restaurant's losing money. Like if there's money, then you might get a raise. And within 6 months, the smallest growth that one of the restaurants had felt was 17%. That was the smallest number of all 13 restaurants.
Yeah.
And so I went to them and said, like, okay, what's next? Like, what do you want me to do now? And they went, well, why don't you just pick which restaurant you want? You can be the manager of it. And I said, nah, I'm good. And I left.
Yeah.
After 8 months, I left. And I went and worked for a startup.
And what was your reasoning behind that? What was your reason to move on?
The problem they wanted me to solve was solved, at least to the extent that I could solve it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wasn't interested in just like basking in that. I don't know. Like,
Well, I've heard you tell that story a lot, and I think in this context, it's actually really it helps us understand something, right? I mean, you are a guy who I think has come in here, solved a problem. It is the right bus. We feel like you're a right person to have on the bus, but maybe the seat is not an infinite seat.
Yeah.
Maybe the seat is for as long as it's supposed to be for. Maybe till the problem's solved. Maybe God's doing something else in you. Maybe another bus comes along you want to get on, or a different seat on the same bus.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the weird thing when it comes to churches and staffing and people who are part of it, it's not every organization. It's not Best Buy. It's not some other corporation down the road. We all become family in this weird way. And as part of that, family with the people who are participating in church with us, not just the staff.
Right.
And it can become so hard when somebody's been around for 3 years and they go, well, it's time for me to go to something else. And I think that's where we often hear this, God is calling me away. And everybody kind of, when they hear that, is like, wow, what's the real story behind that? Or, what else is going on? I think it's part of why we're doing this episode of this podcast, so people can hear a real story behind how God might be calling someone away. Because I do think God is part of this. I don't want to.
Oh, for sure. And one of the reasons that I think we can have these conversations, and to be very clear to everybody listening, I have no idea where I'm going or what my next job is.
Yeah, we didn't say that.
I don't have a clue. I'm interviewing with a few different places in a few different industries. Some of them are churches, some of them are not. But I honestly have no clue. And there's no specific end date for
This is really early in our conversation, right? So what are we, a couple weeks into this ourselves?
And so, but, you'll hear me tell my leaders all the time, like, you're supposed to bloom where you're planted.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try to get up and leave before then, on a certain level, it's kind of acting in disobedience. Like if God's called you to something and you're leaving because it's uncomfortable or it's difficult, it's not going to work out for you.
Yeah.
In this particular situation, I don't feel like God's calling me away.
Yeah.
But I feel released from what I'm currently doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes people stick around after they've been released, and then it gets unhealthy or it gets toxic or it gets bad because they're either afraid of what's next.
Mm-hmm.
They are stubborn and they don't want to let go of the thing that they've helped to create. Or they've got a sweet gig and they don't want to leave. And honestly, like all three of those could be true. Like I have a really sweet gig. I've got a sweet house. I work for a great place. I get to wear shorts and flip flops to work all day. Like it's everything.
Don't tell everybody that.
Everything's great.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's good. That doesn't mean that it's the right thing forever.
Yeah. And I think that is the hard part for us sometimes as church goers. We really develop a bond with the people who are working with us on church staff, or again, if we don't work at the church, but we're a part of that, serving in that person's ministry, following under their leadership, our kids, in your case, under your leadership, it can go, what? Why?
We can't talk about the kids because I'll lose it.
Yeah.
Believe me when I tell you that the thing that makes this decision so gut wrenching is, man, I love your stinking kids. They're so. Okay, we got to move on. Let's move on to the next thing.
But I think, speaking on behalf of parents, and I've been one here, we love the way you love our kids. You are so good at that, and so you're the guy who gets down on his knees at their level and pulls a coin out of their ear, and
they make it really easy. All right, move on. Next question.
But it's to say that it doesn't necessarily mean a failure on your part or the church's part. It can mean that there's a seat that you are the right person to be in for a season, and hopefully a season is more than like 3 months. You know what I'm saying? And then that God calls you to something else. We're trying to stay away from that phrase because it's so, God called me, but we're hoping you see behind the scenes of how sometimes God calls, right? I was good.
I think the fear for me of the whole calling thing is we limit God to one door.
Yeah.
I often ask the question, like, when you're left with this big decision or this big choice you have to make, you feel like God's behind door number 1 or door number 2, and he's not behind the other one. The cool thing, what I've learned about God, is there's so many doors,
right? And
he's been through all of them.
Well, and here's what you know. You don't know what door. You just know he's calling you to get up out of the seat.
Yeah.
That's it.
I know that whatever door it ends up being, whatever bus I end up on, whatever seat I end up in, he's been there, he knows about it, and he's going to take care of us in that. And so that's why we feel confident, like, having this conversation before we know any of that. And we do it hopefully honestly and transparently, because I think it's good for people to see this. Like, change can be healthy, change can be okay. And there's time to be sad about it, and that'll happen. But also, like, man, if it's like, I can't wait to see what's next for all of us.
One of the things that I think might play into this, and maybe people can relate to this, and I know this happens in church industries. Church industries, 2 words I'd never put together before. I don't know if this happens in other industries, is what I meant to say. I know. So Josh, little secret on Josh, not a big fan of personality tests and profile things, whether it's Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, whatever all the different things are. There's one out there, and I think part of it explains a lot, because you're the paperclip guy. You're why do we have to create a box to put everybody in? And
let's 11.2.
But there's one that is I think it's called the team profile. That basically kind of explains that sometimes people they play different roles on a team, and sometimes there's someone who's like the pioneer. When they say that, it's like the person who goes in, starts something brand new, is there for like 2 years, and would be bored to death if they had to continue working with the thing they started. And then there's the next person. I forgot what the name of that person is, but they're the one who comes in and takes the thing that somebody else started and makes it better. And then there's and maybe they're there like 5 years and then making it better kind of area. And then there's the next person who's like, and now my job is, I notice all the problems that the last person left it in, and my job is to come in and fix them, improve it, whatever. Sometimes there's a person whose job it is to kill something and let it die. Just see it through to its very end, and burn it down. Well,
no, I'm just kidding.
Not so much. That thing was already usually burning down. Somebody's just there to put out the fire.
Right.
I say it to say that if we really believe that that's true about the way people are wired, and I do believe that that's true, then it shouldn't surprise us that someone comes in and takes a seat on the right bus, and then at some point says, in cahoots with the organization they're talking with, as they're all talking about, is this still the right seat, 3 years later? It shouldn't come as a surprise to any of us that we might all go, hey, maybe it's not right anymore. And there's a different seat somewhere on the bus, or there's a different bus where you could fill that same seat that they need, that we used to need. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, we've talked about this. I don't think when we all sat down and started this conversation, no one was surprised. It didn't catch anybody off guard, which I think shows how close and honest we all are with each other.
Yeah.
And all that to say, again, I've loved every second on this bus. It's not a bad thing. It's just, and it's not a poor reflection on either side that it's not my seat anymore.
Yeah.
Or very soon it won't be my seat anymore. Yeah. And that's okay. I'm at peace with that.
Yeah. Well, let me say before we kind of shift gears a little bit into what now, Josh, you have been an incredible part of the bus and so wonderful in this seat. And there are so many memories I just have personally. I say this as if you're dead or walking out the door tomorrow. You're not either. But I think of just the conversations we've had, the times together, big idea planning. I think of, dude, I think of the stuff you've done for our kids here. Specifically, one that comes to mind is just this princess party we had, Disney princess thing. That was so wonderful. I think of the stuff you've done outside of that, Touch a Truck. I think of the stuff you did when you were kind of working in our student ministries and planning some incredibly fun events that were for students before you joined our Kids Min staff. In fact, little known secret, everybody, if you're ever in the auditorium and you look down, I see Josh's face right now, like, oh, I can't believe you're going to tell this.
The slowest firing of all time.
Yeah, we brought you on just so we can
milk you for every bit of labor I can, so I get my money back for the floor you ruined in our auditorium.
If you ever look down and you notice lines where the stain has been ruined, it was a dodgeball tournament you set up with gaff tape.
It was not gaff tape. We don't need to get into this.
All right.
With a very expensive special tape that's specifically designed to not ruin whatever surface you put it on.
And no matter what we've done, we couldn't work. Anyway, all that said, dude, it's been so fun having you as part of it. And I'm for real when I say I hope that you get to be back on our bus again someday, or we get to have you back on our bus, because
I do too.
Yeah.
I would love that.
So where do we go now? One of the things that, if you got the email you saw, is that Josh and I just kind of rolled out together in this email what we're going to be doing on Sundays moving forward during COVID. And the weirdest part of all of this is that it's happening during COVID, right? So it becomes a real challenge to kind of think through, well, what does it look like? What do we want Sundays to look like moving forward in all of this? And one of the wonderful things that we've come across, I mean, we've been aware that this exists, but this organization we're working with has really kind of stepped up their game in the last 7 months of the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, we used to use their stuff and then moved away from it, and they've gotten much better.
Yeah, we have worked with, we're working with an organization called Rethink that has created curriculum that is age appropriate for basically what we're going to be using it for 4 different age groups. Early childhood, which is birth through pre-K, right, Josh? Am I getting that right? Elementary, which here is kindergarten through 3rd grade. Level up here, which is 4th and 5th. And then we're actually going to start using some of their stuff for middle school. And while we've used their curriculum before as a church, we've never actually used much of their pre-recorded pieces that are video pieces that are targeted toward kids of that age. And what we're noticing right now is that Josh, Zach in middle school, these guys have had to become, in addition to kids ministry directors, middle school level up, they've also had to become video personalities, editors,
writers, producers, editors, costume designers,
And most of you probably know that we've reduced our staff in the middle of all of this. So whereas before there might be 3 CrossWinds Kids people getting all that done, it's just been Josh having to do that right now and make it all happen. And so, we've been talking, okay, well, as we make this transition with Josh, and I don't mean let's do this once Josh figures out where he's going and then we'll start it, but we're going to start it The November 1st is actually our plan. What would it look like? Well, Josh is still here to transition to something that we feel like can be consistent, stable, kind of the same concept that will be happening every single week. And we've got some stuff kind of coming with that.
Yeah. And I think important to note too is if I was, if we hadn't had this other conversation about me, getting off the bus, to keep going back to that analogy, this would be the direction we were heading in anyway. Yeah. And so I think it's really unique that I get to play a part in the launching of this and then the transitioning of this, and it will make wherever CrossWinds Children's Ministry goes pretty seamless for your kids and pretty smooth, which is the goal in all this. The goal is not to leave anything unfinished or uncared for. I think that's poor leadership. So
I appreciate it. I love the way that you want to help us get this thing going.
Yeah, the wherever I end up, they're going to have to, they're going to have to wait until I feel like this thing is in good space before I say like, okay, now here's my stop.
Yeah.
So
the way this splits up is according to those four things I just mentioned, and where that is maybe a little bit of a shift from what we've been doing right now. Right now, Zach, again, because he's one man, he has been recording, I believe, a video for Sunday morning himself that is for Level Up, 4th and 5th graders, and then for middle school, 6th through 8th, the same video. So a 4th grader is getting the same content as an 8th grader. Right now, Josh has been recording a video that is primarily probably targeted toward elementary. Wouldn't you say, Josh?
Yeah, I would say that I try to land somewhere within the 1st and 2nd grade area, and hopefully some younger kids can reach up and some older kids can reach down. But again, when there's one person and I've got, from 0 to 10,
it's hard
to hit that age group.
Totally. So to be able to access this content that is really going to be age appropriate, I think is already going to be a step up for a lot of you families who've not been able to really feel like what we've got is hitting your 3-year-old, right? Or whatever we're doing with that. And the way that's going to come out, and you'll see this on November 1st, we hope everybody checks it out. It'll be on the YouTube channel for CrossWinds Kids, or the 2 different ones, I should say, or 3 really, I guess, right? It'll CrossWinds Kids will probably have the content for birth through pre-K, early childhood, what we call elementary, and then Level Up. We'll have all of those on there. And I think what you'll see is families is that it won't just be, hey, here's a video that somebody made, good luck, enjoy it. You'll see our CrossWinds people who are part of that. Like you'll see November 1st, Josh and probably another person from our CrossWinds Kids ministry on that video, kind of setting it up and saying hi to our kids, and then throwing to this content, and then wrapping up out of the content as well.
Yeah, because one of the things that we think is really important is, and why we moved away from purchased curriculum before, was because like nobody knows our kids better than we do.
Right.
That was the kind of the thought. And when you are operating with a full team and your full week or time to do it, like it's easy to take curriculum and adapt it or write your own. One of the nice things that this now allows us to do, and one of the changes that they've made, is we can take all of the production value that they bring and the teams of people that they have working on this one thing to keep it targeted and keep it age appropriate and relevant and entertaining. And then we can then add and tweak and shape it to fit our kids, our community, our church. So it won't seem like you looked up somebody else's YouTube channel, or you didn't stumble into somebody else's homemade videos. Like these are high quality, high produced videos that a lot of thought and energy and prayer goes into making sure that they're right for your kids. And yet we still get to be a part of it and a face in that. So it's familiar and, I don't know, safe and welcoming and again, what your kids are used to seeing. So it'll be I think it will be good on every single front. I think you would be hard pressed to find a place where you could tell me that this isn't a vast improvement on.
Yeah.
Not that I haven't loved making videos.
No, you're good at it too. Dude, you've made some highly creative, wonderful videos that other churches have been like, can we use that? We'd like to buy that off of you. So your videos have been wonderful. It's just to say, I think it allows our families here at CrossWinds and you to not feel the burden of having to create videos for all these different age appropriate groups. And they've got 100 people working on one video there versus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a smart choice to, again, it's all good stuff. It's all stuff that we would have been trying to put out in our own videos, but now we can actually come alongside our families and our kids and help them really get into all the benefits and resources that this has to offer and focus our time that way.
Yeah.
And on some extra things that we can do with it that we can add to this already good foundation, this good base, rather than just try to scramble and try to get you something.
Right.
It seems like we're not taking an extended vacation.
Yeah, exactly. We're at the 49-minute mark, so I'm gonna move a little faster through this. But the ideas on those videos, again, you'll see a person from CrossWinds, Josh, another person probably with him, introducing what's going on that video. For the younger kids, there'll actually be music and songs to sing along with and dance to. There'll be kind of the teaching thing, some fun stuff in that video, and then again, you'll see Josh and CrossWinds kind of outro those videos. So. I think they'll be really, really good, and it will feel like a CrossWinds experience. And here's the deal, families. This is really important, parents. I know that your communication to us is that you're just thrilled that we're doing anything right now. I hear that every week when we do our outdoor service and any number of the things we're doing around here. Everybody's just so grateful that we're still trying in the middle of this whole thing. And I'm grateful that you're grateful for that. We don't want to pause your kids' spiritual growth. And I've talked with a few families who are like, it's okay. It's all right. We'll get it figured out when this thing's all over. No, please don't do that. like this is actually a wonderful time for you to be building into your kids spiritually, and don't forsake that. It's part of why we're working with this group to come up with some good stuff. We just know this is a chance for you guys to do some cool things. So the second piece, and that speaks to it, we're going to give you materials that equip you, parents, so that you can use what has been on those videos on Sunday to begin conversations with your kids about Jesus and what it is they're learning. And in fact, one of the wonderful things that Josh has done here in the middle of this thing, his idea, these boxes, these CrossWinds Kids boxes that have gone home. And we're going to continue to do those CrossWinds Kids boxes, but we're going to be putting things in there that are also, especially for you parents, to know how to have regular conversations with your kids out of what it is they're seeing. We're going to have our hands on this content 2 months in advance of when it is available for you to see, which means we've got lots of time as a team here to make sure we're using that content to equip you parents and set you up to do some things with it, because we are not able to do those things with your kids right now. Small groups, them meeting with our volunteer leaders and team here. So we'll ask you to do that, parents, but we're going to set you up to be good at it.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a nice shift. I think, again, I think everything about this is a step in a positive direction. And I'm with you. Like, you will never have this much FaceTime with your kids at home ever again. Yeah. Man, let's capitalize on it. Let's make the most of it.
Yep. And then the third thing that we'll be doing, and this one we're excited about. It's probably a little bit of an experiment, speaking to the everything's an experiment concept, but November 15th is our plan, right, Josh? We're going to start to try to put on a Sunday night family service that would involve, wait, you just waved at me. Was that?
Oh, no, I was doing like jazz hands, like theatric. I was trying to.
I thought it was a wave like cut. No, don't talk about this.
No, I'm like, we're going to put on a production.
No, one of the things I've always loved, I've visited some churches in the last 20 years or so that have tried these things where they will have a service designed just for parents and kids to come together. And it's really a kids service, but like with some fun stuff for parents in it too. So that as families, they can go home and talk about those things. And we thought, well, why not? We can't really do kids ministry the way that we'd love to right now with COVID. In fact, Jody and I are going to be recording another podcast here in the next week or so about Alameda County allowing indoor services pretty soon. And as such, are we ready for that? And if we were ready for that and felt it was safe, would we be honest enough to say, probably can't drop your kids off in a room while you go into the other service? So we'd love to get your kids back involved in an in-person thing and seeing friends and seeing leaders. And so that's what this family service thing that we want to start November 15th would be. And it would be kind of like a once a month thing is what we're thinking, Josh, right? And what is it, like 45 minutes? An hour?
Yeah, I would say anywhere from a half hour to 45 minutes. Again, the point is to get them back into something that resembles like what they would do on Sundays, but they get to do it with you, the parents. And so
Right.
you don't have to ask the question, "What'd you learn today?" Because hopefully you'll pay
You were
attention
there.
too.
And you sit outdoors. It would be outdoors where you sit with your kids, your family, and again, some live elements that you'll watch. And then it would be the same, a lot of the same content you would see if you were watching the video that Sunday morning. So if you come on November 15th, you'll skip the video that morning and instead you'll come that Sunday evening and you'll watch it. By the way, the reason we're doing it at night is because we've got a giant inflatable video screen to be able to put some of those kind of things on. And then we'll free you up to kind of even as a family have a little bit of small group time right there. Is that what you're thinking, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mean, if you guys were a part of ever our Sunday night gathering when we were doing it, like it'll have a similar vibe. We'll come, we'll hang out together. We'll go through we'll do service on the lawn as a family. There'll be worship and a game and then the video lessons. And then, like I said, I think for the first week I want cookies and milk out there because it'll be fall by then. I want to do like some cookies and milk for everybody. Like we'll make it will be worthwhile to get in the car, to come to this beautiful place and to actually get to do church again in a way that seems familiar and yet exciting and different and hopefully engaging for your kids.
Josh, you cut out for a second, but you're back.
Okay,
yeah. I'm trying to do this without editing so people can just see an honest, unedited conversation. So everyone, sorry for the glitch you may or may not have just heard, but
me talking so probably wasn't very good, or it was a run on sentence.
I think we just lost the very end of it. Yeah. So I'm grateful, dude. I'm grateful that you were helping us set this up before you go. And again, we don't know when you're going to leave, but we know that the day is coming. And I'm grateful you're helping us set something up that we really think we can continue and do well once you're gone. And whoever comes in and joins us can help continue to lead out. And I think we'll have a good thing in place. So,
yeah, one of the things that is very important to me in any place that I work or any place that I go to, like I want to leave this place better than I found it. And so, I guarantee you won't see me check out in any sense of the word. Like this is not to allow me to take it easy. This is so that I can dig in even more with the time I have left here to really set this thing up for a very, very bright future.
I agree, man. I don't think it in any way is going to be taking it easy. I think there's a lot of work involved in the things that we just listed for everybody. So lots to happen there. Josh, I will say, we're going to miss you. And I don't feel like we should say goodbye yet because while I know you're talking to some places and have some irons in the fire, I also know that sometimes these things could take 6 months. So
yeah,
it's a little premature.
One church took like 5 months and like 20 interviews before they even hired me, even though they told me they wanted to hire me. So I don't, I don't know, but it might not go super fast. So you may be stuck with me for a little while longer. Who knows?
Yeah. So I would say we'll all have opportunity to say goodbye and just celebrate you. And, to your idea of wanting to leave it better than you found it. Absolutely, dude. And that's true of you. And you will have done that. And we're grateful that you've been on the bus, man.
It's been a fun ride.
All right, everybody. If you have questions, you're always welcome to reach out to me, reach out to Josh, reach out to Matt, Matt Van Gann, our executive pastor. Matt could have joined us on this, but he's on vacation.
Yeah, he's on vacation. His mind's going to be blown when he gets back and hears this. He's going to be like, what? No, he knows. I'm just kidding.
No, he knows about all this. and actually, Matt and Josh are really good friends. And in the midst of all of this, that friendship continues. So, we the timing of the timing is the timing. I don't know what to say other than, sorry, Matt. Sometimes we
have fun at the Grand Canyon. Whatever.
Yeah, for real.
That's socially distanced taken too far.
Yeah. If you listened to all 58 minutes of this, thank you. And we'll answer more questions as need be. And that's it. So thanks, Josh. Appreciate your transparency and willingness to sit and talk about this with everybody.
Super fun.
All right, man. Catch you later. Bye, everyone.